Beepity beep beep. It is time for me to go back to the shadows of deep space or something like that. Hello everyone. Welcome to another casual conversation with me, your friend Carlz, who tries to take whatever he says, like in the third person, like this idiot, whatever I said in my Spanish version and try to make it make sense in English. This time I go back to the never ending, like never forgiving love-hate relationship with Star Wars. I often say to myself, I'm tired of talking about Star Wars, which in part is true, but whenever something new from the franchise come up, I still watch it. I think deep down I still love Star Wars, and perhaps I will always will. But here's the thing. I think Star Wars has become something bigger than just franchise, than just, I don't know, an IP. Star Wars is this sort of comfort food for sci-fi fans. Since I was a kid, I've loved both Star Wars and Star Trek as my main go-to sci-fi drug intakes. But the thing with Star Wars, as time has gone by, is like, to me they have both set the standard and at the same time set what is the opposite of standard. Star Wars has this quality, literal quality, especially visual, that has no match. The last couple of months I've quoted Star Wars a lot as being this gold standard for special effects, mostly. And mostly, again, because we have so many movies in the genres of fantasy and science fiction that they just look awful. Like awful looking movies, like puke AI, almost lob green screen, however you want to call it. But these standards that Star Wars has set up are a double-edged sword. And The Mandalorian and Grogu, the movie which I'm talking today, is a prime example of that. What do I mean by this? I think we ought to hold Star Wars to a higher standard. If it's gonna be the standard, you hold it to higher standards. And I don't think the people behind Star Wars are completely kind of like embracing that idea. And Mandalorian and Grogu is an example of that. Mandalorian and Grogu, for those of you who don't know, is just you can basically describe it as just another adventure for Mandalorian and Grogu, which of course comes from the series The Mandalorian, probably one of the most successful stories for the franchise in live action for the past decade or something, where we got the story of Jin, what's his name? Jin Darin, played by Pedro Pascal, who has a bunch of issues with the Mandalorian Order, with the Empire, with the remnants of the Empire, and Grogu, who is it's like a foundling, I think, from the race of Yoda, who is extremely force sensitive, as most creatures from that species are. But here's the thing. You can't look at Mandalorian and Grogu without the fact that it's a movie. What does this basically mean? If you combine the high standards and the fact that it's a movie, this movie is so disappointing. That is the main thing. As you watch Mandalorian and Grogu from start to finish, the credits roll, and this movie leaves you with nothing. This is no small matter. It's crazy to think about it. Of course, you can talk about the whole thing of this movie originally being another season for the show. They had to adapt, etc., etc. But the more I think about it, the less I accept any excuse for this movie. And the one reason is what I introduced before. You gotta ask higher standards, not only for Star Wars in quality, but Star Wars as movies. This is one thing that I've been thinking since I did my Spanish episode, which is the phenomena that made me feel that this movie was mediocre. And it is that Star Wars at the beginning, it was an epic story. I said this in my Spanish episode, but I'm taking it a step further. The Star Wars story was epic, but the phenomenon of a movie of Star Wars was epic as well. You know, Star Wars is not just another franchise. I've heard it being called so many times Americana, like a piece of Americana, American pop culture, like quintessential, fundamental part of American culture, like and it is. And you know, we keep kind of like looking for that feeling. We keep looking for that emotion every time you sit down to watch a Star Wars movie. And that is key, because it has kind of like I have developed this idea that, and I think I mentioned it before, but the last time I talked about Star Wars was probably Andor, which is quite unrelated to the whole Skywalker saga. But I've said it plenty of times. After the Skywalker saga, Star Wars has no direction no more. They have tried the High Republic and doing some stuff between episode 7, before episode 7, but Star Wars has lost its sense of epicness. And the more you see this contrasted in a movie, the more clear and evident it is. So, if the movie has no epic feel to it, if the movie has like a lower shield standard, what can you look forward to it if you sit down to watch it? Mandalorian and Grogu is just the story of Mandalorian looking for some Empire like leftover guy, and he ends up doing this side quest to rescue the son of Jabba the Hutt. Like, if you start at the basis or at the base of it, this movie's plot is so fucking weak. You know, I mentioned it before, and this is one of the most common comments on the movie: the fact that it was supposed to be a show, right? You think that this is something you can't tell as a viewer, but you totally can. And this happened mostly because the movie doesn't seem to have one storyline. It doesn't seem to have a main objective. It doesn't seem to have a north, a goal. Even in the latest seasons of the show, there has always been a main goal related to Mandalore, related to Mando's creed and culture, related to Grogu's origins or destiny. It has always been like that. But Mando and Grogu movie, it feels like just some random adventure they had. And this is really key, because while you're watching the movie, it seems that it's made of pieces. It's made of pieces of different stories. You know, you can't basically say this movie is about this. And what's even worse, if the movie lacks a clear objective, what does that mean for the core of the movie, which is Mandalorian and Grogu, both of the characters? They get extremely shallow and nothing really happens to them. There's no more Mandalorian creed issues, there's no more father-son crisis. Like, it's just them having an adventure. And you might think, but that's okay. Like, seeing just a light adventure in the world of Star Wars with nice special effects, nice visuals, you know, some really funny puppets. It might be the case, but I can't accept it. under that premise, the movie is fairly fine. It has fun action scenes, and as I said, it's visually good, but it's really lacking. If it lacks this element of growth, personal growth from the main characters, and it's just a fun action movie to be seen, okay, that might be the case. But let's look at the action scenes in Mandalorian and Grogu. Even if they look fancy, even if they look good, there's one thing that I can't accept and just takes me back to the movie's mediocrity. Is that the action scenes, they look good, but the more you look at them, the more you notice the fact that Mando is fucking invincible. And that shit just like made me almost fall asleep. From minute one, Mando is fucking invincible. It totally reminds me of that scene in Austin Powers where Austin Powers is like in an open space, and he begins like a shootout with some bad guys, and even though he's completely exposed, no bad guy even lays one bullet on him, and then he shoots all of them like pew pew pew, like, and he doesn't miss at all. That is basically every action scene in The Mandalorian and Grogu. At no point ever you feel like Mando is in any risk of losing. Not even when he fights like big monsters or robots. At no point you feel that. And that makes the shallowness of the movie even boring. It's completely true. Like, there's no action scene in Mandalorian and Grogu where Mando doesn't just destroys everyone. And honestly, it's straight up boring. It's boring how broken he is. Like, he just destroys everyone. Why the hell would I worry about him? He comes to a place and is like, oh yeah, these are the bad guys. It's like, you can't be here, outsider. Poof, you're dead. I'm Mando. No, nothing ever faces me. So, you don't have personal growth. You have action scenes that, even though they look good, they are really mediocre. You know, you have a story that is fragmented, that goes nowhere. You have a movie which should be epic, but it's not. What's going on then? I think Star Wars is lost in this strange, what I call the PG-13 purgatory. I feel like, there's this contrast in the Star Wars universe right now that has brought, have raised my attention in really strange ways. Basically, I'm talking about two other products or recent products of the franchise, being the Darth Maul animated show, Shadow of Maul, I think it's called, and the latest, biggest kind of like success live action, which was Andor. Both are fine. I think I like them just enough, but both of them have brought to my attention the fact that people in the Star Wars universe, they really seem to be so hungry, have this such a strong desire to see stuff in the franchise that it's not really there. These two things are, for the side of Maul, like the darkness, like the violence, if you want to call it, like physical and emotional violence. Like, how many times did I heard during the Maul times when it was current and people were talking about it, like, oh, this series is so dark and it goes places, and I'm like, really? Like really? How? Where? Because spoiler, just because another Padawan is tempted by the dark side, like, I don't know, because some people actually died. And the same thing happened with Andor. I made a whole episode about it, about how we sort of complement the show with our own expectations of it. Like, you can't just have Disney, which is basically the empire, being so pandering and like, oh, we're gonna make a show about the rebellion. And Andor also tiptoes around kind of like the ideas of being anti-empire, or what it takes to form a rebellion. It also touches some sensitive or some you can call it controversial sides of the whole thing. And it's good, but it's warm, it's weak, it doesn't take a step forward. And you might be wondering, like, why do you want these Star Wars like products to be so edgy? It's not that I want them to, it's that I need them to. Why? Because Star Wars feels so safe and plain that, I don't know. As I said at the beginning of the episode, I love the franchise, but I feel like it's not giving me anything. So if we come back to Mandalorian and Grogu, that's why I'm not angry, but that's why I'm so frustrated at the fact that this movie is so not epic. You see, so it's the contrast between what you want and what you get, as often happens, which just makes this movie feel so mediocre, plain, and boring. I think, to finish the whole PG-13 purgatory thing, I said that Mando feels like he's never gonna die. He's always like winning in every action scene. But to that, I will add the fact that this is a very personal thing, and I don't want to sound like just like a psycho or something, but it really pisses me off that nobody explicitly kind of like dies in this movie. It's so PG-13, and I'm frankly exhausted. And you can see it in the fact, for example, that every fucking fight is against either someone wearing an armor or a robot. I'm so tired of Star Wars using robots to hide violence into a PG-13 kind of like, I don't know, as I said, purgatory. It is getting on my nerves. It is getting really annoying. Perhaps that's why people think Andor is so edgy, but because you have actually people dying, you know. But it's just what is that saying? Brings my boil. No, brings my piss to a boil. I think I heard that saying once. But that's a really hard saying to use if English is not your first language, and if you're not of that culture. But anyway, it really began pissing me off, because we already established that this movie is mediocre and the plot itself is kind of weak. But by the third act, when he has to go against the Huts, they go like, oh, these are one of the biggest criminal enterprises in the world, and they are so powerful, and we are so scared of them. Okay, but then they go to their headquarters, and all they have is fucking droids. Droids everywhere, just some fucking random droids, leftovers from the Clone Wars. And I shit you not, it just made all of those action scenes so boring. I said once that the strongest sort of Star Wars experience to me was full of pew pews and zoom zooms, which it's just some good action shooting scenes and some good either physical or lightsaber action. But you need to have some character to them. You need to have them fighting something worthwhile. By the climax of the movie, Mando, this is a little bit of spoiler. I'm not gonna. There's not much to spoil, anyways. The movie's that whatever, that shallow. by kind of like the end of the movie, he fights these two big droids. Like they're like big. They look like something from like a Doom video game or something. Big droids, and he's like, "Oh my God, it's Mando against the big droids." And by that point, you are so out of it. You know, you are so whatever. It's like, what's the point? We mixed. You get these big two, like almost final bosses in these giant androids, but we already established that Mando is never losing, and since they are just androids, there's nothing they could do, and they're gonna lose, right? And that's just basically how it happens. I shit you not, I can't even spoil that. You get to that point and you know exactly what's gonna happen. That is the truth. You know exactly what's gonna happen. You go there, he fights there, he does some jumping, some of his like whatever fire thing he does, and that's it. He wins. So the more you think, the more I think about the movie, the more issues and the more kind of like problems I have finding things to like about it, finding things to make it worthwhile. And honestly, in kind of like a sad way, you have to conclude that this movie is just for the money, man. Like, I'm sorry, but by the end of it, I'm just struggling and like really kind of like fighting for the desire to find something in this movie. But sadly, there's none. The only thing that it's in this movie, or the only reason for this movie to exist, is for money. And I'm not gonna stand here and try to uh, uh, pretend or sell the idea that Star Wars is not about money, because it has been for a long time. But you wonder, what is the point of this movie? Why does it exist, and why is it so weak? And because what this movie shows is that Star Wars can put anything on the big screen and get money out of it. I don't think there has ever been a Star Wars movie that has not made money. I'm thinking about Solo. That is the one that I think like they have probably, as they quote unquote underperformed. Yeah, it says 360 million. Oh my God, that's an amount of money, and he only made 390, which is still a plus, but not to the levels that Star Wars wants. But Mandalorian and Grogu made a shit ton of money. Obviously, didn't break the box office, but he made a shit ton of money. And it's hard not to struggle against that fact, against the idea of these things existing for the mere sake of money. But if you want to challenge that notion, give me something. All your reflections had led you to this fact, by now undeniable, that this movie was just a cash grab. Give me something. Challenge it. Give me something. Give me a new step in the development of the relationship between Mando and Grogu. Not there. Give me a further expansion on what is going on with the Mandalorians after the last season of the show. There's none of it. give me a deeper like take or view or more information into the remnants of the empire, which are supposed to lead you to Admiral Thrawn and all of that. Give me something of that. There's none. Give me something about Grogu's past, Grogu's race, Grogu's force sensitive. Give me something about that. There's nothing about that. Give me something about the Huts, about the Syndicate, about why are they so important. There's some of it, but there's so little of it. What else? And you can go on and on. You have a bunch of but by now it's is it already the New Republic? But you get the good guys there. You get like fucking Sigourney Weavers, right? And give me something about them. Give me something. But there's none. And that is the truth. Like I can't even though I scratch and I dive deep and I look all over for it, there's nothing on it. There's absolutely nothing else to get for this movie. And which is sad, because the best part of this movie are without a doubt Grogu and the Babu Freak gang. It's like it brings a smile to your face when you are actually seeing them like running around being puppets. There's such a charisma and there is such a cutesy spirit on them. But a couple of puppets is not enough to carry a movie. Even Pedro Pascal, he's in the movie for like 2 seconds. 2 seconds. But anyways, I think that's the only sort of last resort or last what can you say, last scrape of good intentions or good vibes that I can get from this movie. The best thing I can do, and I think most people can, is to see it as just this innocent cash grab that is not gonna challenge the status quo of Star Wars, and it doesn't really have to. As I said at the beginning, this whole thing about Star Wars being a piece of Americana and everything, I think that's mostly the case. That is just it's a thing that is gonna be there forever, and it's gonna keep producing stuff of different intensities and of different successes and but people like me who love the franchise, we are not doomed, but we are fated, as many characters in the franchise itself, the Duel of Fates. We are fated to keep living in this fantasy world because we got into it at the beginning for the one reason of this fantastic escapism from reality. So even if it's mediocre, I think it's just gonna be a good thing to have. And that's basically my time. Quite a disappointing overall experience, but it's gonna be fine, man. Let's just wait for the next one. But if you haven't seen this one and are thinking about skipping it, just skip it, man. Honestly. Okay, that is my time. Thank you all for listening, and may the force be with that sounds like that Christian thing where you say may God be with you, and then they reply with your spirit or something, like, something like that. May the force be with you and with your spirit. Praise be. See you all next time. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.